What's up? What's up? Today, your boy is back with a very special song breakdown. As for the very first time, I have released music. I dropped two tracks on Sunday called One on One and Kemba Walker. And so today's episode, I figure I'd cover one song this week and actually do the next one the following week. So, yes, for the first time in a very long time on Hip to the Games, I'll have back-to-back weekly episodes. So I'm excited for that. But the first one I'm going to do today, I decided is going to be on one. And then, of course, next week is going to be on Kemba Walker. One on one is an idea I came up with about a month ago, maybe even almost like a little over that, maybe like late July, early August, if I'm correct. And I challenge myself when writing that. Obviously when you have like rapper brain, right? Like you're always thinking of punchlines, you're always thinking of songs and freestyles, things of that nature. But I challenge myself specifically to like go past my typical 16, that you see on my Instagram page, right? And as the song kind of started forming itself, I became pleased with what I was writing. And, I knew that I had to record it. And, whether you listen to it already or are hearing about it for the first time now, you'll find that it's all about the different battles that we face deep down. Maybe you're a hooper that is trying to outlast your opponent, right? Maybe you believe in Jesus, but you struggle with the enemy's schemes. Or maybe you've simply become aware that sometimes your biggest enemy is yourself. And I'm somebody that resonated with all those ideas. So I knew that once I kind of came with that universal theme, I'm like, I think, it would be a disservice if I didn't put this out for other people to hear and listen to and absorb. So one on one really combines all those scenarios into one song. And I'm very excited to break it all down to you. Like I'm always excited for song breakdowns, as you know, but this obviously, as you can imagine, hits a little different. So I'm really excited to get into these tracks with you. And, as always, we're going to enjoy bars, we're going to enjoy punchlines, basketball references, deep messages. But what I always hope you get from these episodes and these breakdowns is that there's always a story. And, we are just as much alike, as a human race as we are different. And, it's quite humbling to do a song breakdown for my own work. But just like any other one, man, get ready to receive what might be the inspirational push that you need to defeat the opponent that stands in front of you. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. Welcome back to another episode of Hip to the Games. Shout out to you if you are a loyal listener slash viewer. If you're watching on YouTube, shout out to you. I'm gonna wave at you just cause so you can see me. I'm happy to know that you are back. And if you happen to be new here, welcome to H2DG. Welcome to Hip to the Games. Whether you choose to listen on audio platforms or watch on YouTube, I always appreciate that support. And of course, before we really get into today's show, I got to give my pregame shout outs out the way real quick. The first one always going to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode and allowing me to do what he's put on my heart to do and express my creativity in various ways to just do to perform that idea that he put in my heart at a very early age, unbeknownst to me, right? But it's always a blessing to be able to do that. And then the second one goes to my 19 Media Group family for the platform and support, as it's always a privilege to represent that blue and white. All right. They are the home team. Be sure to check out the variety of shows we do have on the network and follow everything going on with us at 19M Group on Twitter, 19 Media Group on IG, 19 Media Group on YouTube. We really got a dope network of independent podcasters hosting shows around sports, music, culture, lots of passionate creators on this team of mine. And I'm sure you could find another teammate of mine to support. Whether it's through listens, views, social media, merch, there are just so many ways that you can support and show love, and all of it I can speak and say that it's seen and felt. And before we as we start to get into today's episode, it's always my hope that you understand just how powerful hip hop is and can be. And if you stick with me here, I can guarantee that you will enjoy this episode and leave inspired, leave with a smile, leave with a laugh, or maybe just a simple reminder of why you love hip hop in the first place. All right. So, with all that out the way, we can get into some background on One by yours truly, Desmond Powell. So, I'll start with this. Now, if you listen to the songs already, you know that they aren't original songs. My writing process for what would later become One started after listening to at the time the new project from Common and Pete Rock, the Auditorium Volume 1. I just said that in the previous episode that I've been had that album on repeat since it dropped. And that first listen, maybe those first two listens, I was just super inspired. And just hearing Common spit those effortless rhymes and dope punchlines, without the pressure of trying to get respect that he's already earned, right? He's just at that point in his career as an OG, like, and they even said in an interview, right? P Rock had to tell him, like, bro, like you've contributed more than enough to this game. Like, don't put that pressure on yourself. Like, you are Common, just rap. Like, we know you, bro. Like, so it was really inspiring to hear how he did that on the auditorium, and it inspired me to write some rhymes of my own. Now, combine that with me finally catching up to and listening to Rhapsody's latest drop, Please Don't Cry. Like, I really felt like rapping. I really felt like rapping. And sometimes with that, it's like I'm sure again, my fellow rappers and MCs can relate. Like, sometimes you get that itch, and it can be hard. Sometimes it's writer's block. Sometimes it's just like I'm writing, but I don't necessarily like what I'm writing. Like, I don't really like what's being produced. Like, but this time I got that itch, and it was like, yeah, this is a good one. And I peeped her. She performed the song Raw on the Vivo Control, like, live performances that they be doing on social and YouTube. And she performed Raw with Niko Brim, and of course Lil Wayne is on that song, but she did her verse um on the Vivo thing. And just playing that song, like, that song was heavy on repeat. I'm talking, like I said in my other episode, I'm talking like I'm listening to that like 20 times in a row, like that kind of repeat. And I saw that video come up on my IG, and I'm like, just Rhapsody is just a dope MC, dope MC. She's confident, she's bold, she's fierce, you know what I'm saying? And I love that. And that's something that really stuck out to me. And when I heard that beat, I'm like, she's spitting, and I'm like, I might need to get on that. And lo and behold, I found the instrumental, and I knew exactly what beat I was gonna rap on. Now, the funny thing is, during this process, the first raps that I thought of while I was hearing that beat were some of the ones you'll hear in the middle of the song. More on that later. So I knew that I had to not just fill in the spots before and afterward, but make sure that that build up and that aftermath was just as dope as that little section that I just immediately thought of. And man, it's just wild how God works. Because you'll find moments throughout One where just naturally, like, the beat changes at like the perfect time, when maybe my cadence changes, or maybe the theme of the song changes, and then somehow the beat just naturally changed. Like, I didn't, or there's even like a part where you kind of have this like heartbeat, maybe like pulse effect, as I say some lines, and like they were at the perfect time. And that was something I didn't plan. I was just writing and rapping, and it wasn't until I like played it back where I'm like, yo, this can be really dope. And like I didn't edit any of that stuff. It's just the way the verse went, and that again, that kind of served as confirmation for me, right? Like, yo, like I'm indeed supposed to drop this, like I'm supposed to do this. And later, as I was starting to understand kind of the route that I wanted to go with the song, I was like, well, there's no hook, right? Like again, I'm not just at that point, I feel like yet, and it's even weird to say like in my journey as an MC because like I haven't made music really until this year. Um so like I wasn't really confident coming up with hooks and things of that nature. I just knew like okay, Des, like just let's like I said earlier, like go past 16 bars, see if you can do 32 or more, and then like, what I'm saying, just have you a nice long verse. But of course, not having a hook, I knew I needed kind of something else to make up for that. And so my brain, right? Even again, I don't even think if I was done with the verse yet, but my brain was like, put that Kobe intro, call the track one on one, and put that Kobe interview as the outro for your track to make up for not having a hook. And that's when I was like thinking about it, right? Obviously, as an avid Kobe Bryant fan, like I think back to some of my favorite interview clips of his, and it was just the first one that popped in my head was the one where, at the time, she's with the Cavaliers now, but at the time, Serena Winters had asked him like during his last season, like, has anybody beat you one on one before? Like, because they started talking about the moment where Kobe, he beat up on Isaiah Ryder as a youngin, in like 2000 or 1999, something like that. And he in classic Kobe Bryant fashion, he made that face like are you really asking me that? And once I realized how perfect it would be to include that on a track called One on One, like I just knew like, okay, Des, you can't do this. Like, don't put this on the gram. Like, you need to figure out how to drop this as like a release. I had to record this. And fast forward, it turned out to be something that I'm just incredibly proud of and excited, still excited about. And at the time, like I just knew I couldn't keep it to myself. Folks got to hear this. And it's funny, sometimes some of my favorite raps that I've written and rapped on IG, some of the ones that got a lot of love from my friends and family are the same ones I might have felt more like iffy about at first, but then over time, like I just fall in love with how it all turned out, and that's the thing about rap sometimes, like you got to believe in your bars. Like I don't care. You could spit some of the corniest or wackest bars, but if you just spit them with confidence, they're gonna be less corny and less whack, at least in my opinion. Like the more it is that you believe what you're saying, the more other people are gonna believe what you're saying. And I know that sounds so cliche, like we hear that all the time, but it's facts. So I think it's one of those things like when you write it and you're studying it and you're practicing it, it sounds like I feel like in your own kind of way, it just sounds it's like not it's like it's the same thing as when you don't like hearing your voice for the first time. It's the same thing I feel like sometimes when you write raps. Like you don't always like, or maybe I should have did this, maybe I should have did that. But then once you practice it, you hone it down, you spit with confidence, it's like, oh, this is dope, and it's like right back to square one, like why you did the idea in the first place. So like I said, I'm excited how it turned out, and I can honestly say the more and more I listened to One on One, the more and more I enjoyed it. All glory goes to God for the creative process. Seriously, because especially for both of these tracks to come at a time where I had been feeling like distant from them. I've if I'm being honest, like just been in a very stagnant place mentally. It's like God often uses my raps to let me hear something that I needed to hear. Like don't miss that because that's the thing about at least with my relationship with God, right? Like there are times where even if I'm not in my word for like weeks, right? Even if I'm just slacking and even me, like I blame myself, right? Like it's my lack of discipline, my lack of, wherewithal to to get in the Bible and spend time with him. Like even in those moments, God will like give me this punchline or this idea, and it'll be like, dang, like he's speaking to me through my own raps because I don't have his full attention in the word, because I may not be worshiping, right? However that looks like. God is going to speak with what has your attention at the moment. So for me, it was like It was through rap. Like, it's funny in that way, right? Like he's like, watch this, Des. Like, you think I'm not near you? You think I left you because you're not in your word? Like, I can work with that. Like, watch this. Start writing. And then boom, he's downloading stuff in my brain and I'm writing it out. And before I know it, I'm reading something that's like, this hitting a little too close to home, you know. That's how it is. That's how it is. And he speaks to me through my own bars, and that's how I know that my pen is not just Desmond. Like, it's Holy Spirit led. So when you may hear me spit with confidence and things of that nature, it comes from that. It comes from that. It's really wild to think about. And that's really been the thing, that's made me smile the most about these songs, is having that in mind. Now, as I said in the intro, you'll hear that in this song, I reveal three opponents. Okay. My competition, the enemy slash the devil, and myself. But the thing is that isn't always explicit. There are times it's obvious I'm talking about my competition, right? But at the same time, his traits are parallel to how the enemy tends to act in the spiritual realm, right? Or then I'll even refer to the opponent in third person, right? Like, at the same time, though, I'm describing traits or feelings of my own, right? So you get all three opponents in this. I want you to keep that in mind as you listen to this song, and especially as you listen to this breakdown. So my whole point with one on one was to allow you to resonate with the song entirely, no matter who your opponent is, right? But also be able to pick and choose which enemy you feel like you're going against. So, for example, right, today you might be struggling with negative thoughts. So the enemy is yourself. Next week it might be a spiritual battle, right? So the enemy might be the devil. Next month it might literally be competition, as we're gonna start getting closer to basketball season. So for some, or even just athletics in general, right? If you're an athlete, you might be able to resonate with that. So the point is that whether you're an athlete or not, you can identify with this song at some point, because we all have dreams and goals that we want to reach, and there are no easy buckets in this thing called life, right? So with that, I think that's enough background, even though I feel like in my heart I could say so much more, but I think that's enough with the background. So we can finally get into my intense track one on one.
I mean, if you take those lyrics and you pull them away from the music and you put them up on the wall somewhere and someone had to look at them, they would say, well, this is genius. This is genius work.
All right, so the one thing I kept thinking about with one on one was, how am I going to build up to the four bars I already thought of? And pretty quickly it became obvious. Put a game of one on one in rap form, right? You have your idea, Des, just put it in rap form. Like, take your listener through the game, what a one on one matchup is like. Your thoughts, your feelings, your insecurities, right? The things we don't always like to admit, right? The ups, the downs, the mental fortitude it really takes to defeat an opponent. And once I thought of that, it became pretty easy after that. And I would say it was a bit easier to write one on one as opposed to Kemba Walker, mainly because Kemba Walker is more vulnerable. Again, more on that next week. But with one on one, I was just flowing, man. And when I thought of these first four bars, more particularly the very first line, I knew I had something special brewing. You can't call a carry when I cross unless you carry your cross. In other words, take my spec long as you checking your own. Imperfect, but I don't groan. Acknowledge how much I've grown. Makes and misses are a part of this craft I'm trying to hone. All right, so straight from the jump, I'm fusing the battle with a basketball opponent to the battle with a spiritual opponent, whether that's your own flesh or the enemy. So you can hear, right? That first line, if I do say so myself, is an absolute bar straight from the Holy Spirit. Like, stay with me here. I established the ground rules for the one on one match, right? In basketball brain. Call a fair game, right? Don't call a carry on my cross, right? Don't call a carry on my crossover if you're not going to do the same for yours. But see, spiritual aspect here. You can't call a carry when I cross unless you carry your cross. So not just carry the cross in terms of basketball, but carry the cross in terms of this faith walk, right? And then that's why I say, in other words, take my spec long as you checking your own. That's Bible. out the gate in the very first line, that's Bible. Matthew 7, 3 through 5. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? And later on it says, you hypocrite. First take the log out your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. That's exactly where that line came from. And so how many times too, if you hoop, how many times you ever play ball and somebody call foul every time they get hit, but when you get hit, it's all ball, right? So I'm kind of playing on that too, right? And then spiritually, right? How easy have we made it to be to judge others, whether in social media or in person? Like, let's check our own flaws before we knock on somebody else's. There, and so even then, there's just a lot of depth already in just the first two lines. But I thought it was a clever way to combine the verbiage, right, of basketball talk and words from the Bible, right, and have those two dynamics together. And then, of course, I go on to say, imperfect, but I don't groan. Acknowledge how much I've grown. Makes and misses are part of this craft I'm trying to hone. So, which to me really sets the scene to what the rest of the song is about, right? Like one-on-one games are so useful playing ball because you still get to work on your individual skills, but you actually have someone trying to stop you from scoring, right? So it always serves as a nice litmus test for your skills individually. But again, when I say makes and misses are a part of this craft I'm trying to hone, right? Like, yes, in basketball, you're gonna make and miss shots. Like, don't dwell on that. It's a part of the game, but with life in general too, right? You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna miss shots, you're gonna make a lot of shots. So and even spiritually, right? Makes and misses, right? Sometimes we make the mark, sometimes we miss the mark. We can't let that discourage us from continuing to like follow God and follow his commands. We can't be so hard on ourselves when he's already paid that price for us. He's already given us the grace to keep walking forward. So a lot of parallels between basketball and faith already. And again, that continues for much of the next few lines. I done seen some dry spells and caught losing streaks, and my toughest opponent likes to guard 94 feet. His hands active, as if he channels prime Mike Tyson. The harder that I try, his intensity starts to heighten. So on the basketball side, right? Very realistic. You don't win every game, right? In fact, there are times you lose a lot. Some days, no matter how much you practice, you'll have an off night shooting. Yeah, you could be Steph Curry one day, and then for some reason, you come game time, you shoot 4 or 20, and it's like, what the heck happened? And some of the toughest defenders are the ones who tirelessly pressure you the whole length of the floor, right? 94 feet is the length of like the standard, NBA floor. Like, so yeah, guarding 94 feet. It feels like that sometimes. And, all good defenders are coached to have active hands, right? They get steals, they get deflections, they might hold, push, grab, right? So trying to make it even harder on you. But of course, I compare active hands in basketball, right? There's a metaphor there, um, or I should say a simile there, as I nod to the legendary Mike Tyson, right? My defender has active hands, but I say it as, active hands like Mike Tyson, right? Um, and naturally, right? The harder you try to beat someone this intense, they only match your energy, right? And likewise, again, all of this applies to both the spiritual enemy and even with yourself sometimes, right? Like, so all opponents are at play here. Spiritually, sometimes you have dry spells. You struggle to read the word consistently. Maybe the prayers are getting a little shorter, or even less often than they used to be. And the enemy is relentless. You know what I'm saying? And he wants to seek, kill, destroy in a variety of ways. And even individually, right? Some days are just better than others. Sometimes it's like the more you try to fix things, it's like they get worse somehow, so yeah, a lot of these lines are meaningful to every situation. But the thing to notice is just the fact that no matter who that opponent is, right, no matter who that is in that one-on-one, we are at a low point now. But the shift in momentum is on the horizon in this story as I continue. Took a fall and struggled to rise to my feet. Deep in sweat, all I thought about was defeat, till I heard a small voice say, Des, you are mine. And suddenly, everything became Mary J. Blige, just fine. No longer defined by past sins, God's in me, focused on chasing the wins. So again, basketball wise, this makes sense. Again, right? Like I depict that especially with the deep in sweat. all I thought about was defeat, right? After dealing with some tenacious defense, I'm about ready to throw in the towel, But here's the shift. I heard a small voice say, Des, you are mine, and suddenly everything became Mary J. Blige just fine, right? So imagine these bars with all three scenarios. Basketball, I'm sitting on the ground sweating. Spiritually, I'm upset knowing that my Bible has been closed and, guilt and shame is starting to creep in. Individually, I can't help but be my own worst critic. I don't really have the mental capacity to think positive right now, but in all three scenarios, the Lord continues to call out to me, right? Man, you are my child. You are mine. My children don't accept defeat. Stand up as my son or daughter. Boom, just fine. No longer defined by past sins. God's in me, focused on chasing the wins, right? Fall 7 times, but make sure you stand up 8, right? God only looks at he want to see you get up. He gonna watch you fall, and he's gonna feel for you, but he waiting to see when you decide to get up and come on, let's keep it pushing, right? God doesn't dwell on losses. He's looking towards the next victory always, and you can't get to that next victory if you just sitting, again, taking. I need to take my own advice here, if we accept our role as his children, we just got to fall in line, but again, even when I say past sins, right? And I've done this before on one of my other Instagram freestyles. When I say sins, that still applies to basketball because it isn't just conditioned to spiritual. I often use the word sins even in my basketball rhymes to represent things like mistakes, missed shots, turnovers, losses, etc. So even as a basketball player, or even just individually, all of this still applies, right? All of this is still, very universal here, very universal. But now, as you can imagine, we're starting to get to that climax of the song, right? And even then too, like the way I put like till I heard a small voice say, Des, you are mine, right? Like describing who Jesus, what his character is like, even in that moment. And, maybe in basketball, right? Maybe it's a parent or a teammate who just says, yo, like, get up, bro. Like, get up, sis. You know what I'm saying? Like that, it's that idea of having somebody in your corner who like want to see you, get up. Um, but of course, like I said, we're getting to that climax of the song. All of this is start to hit a turning point right here. As I start to get further into my pocket rapping, the story itself starts to turn that corner. He dapped me up with his palms. He picked me up with the Psalms, 77 to be exact, as if he Luca the Don. Now my switch is turned on like DMX with the songs. Got that in them, but the outside keeping it calm. Woof. So, fun fact, as I said earlier, these were indeed the first bars I thought of before I had any other lines written down. When I heard that raw instrumental from Rapsody, Niko Brim, Lil Wayne, I'm trying to just, when you got rapper brain, you just trying to find something, right? It don't got to be the first lines. You can get creative, but like, what am I thinking of as I hear this beat? And that's when my brain was like, he dapped me up with his palms. He picked me up with the Psalms. One of my favorite Psalms, 77. Yeah, 77 to be exact, as if he Luca the Don. Like that's my nickname for Luka Doncic, right? Now my switch is turned on. Like DMX with the songs. I got that dog in him. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like DMX with the songs got that in him. But the outside keeping it calm. That's exactly how the writing process went for me, and man, like that was when I knew like, nah, Des, you gotta put that on wax. You can't do that on IG. You gotta put it on wax. And but just back to the content, like I thought it was so awesome because it's really how Jesus loves us to back to life, right? Like how even when we think he's distant, even when we believe the lie that he's angry with us individually, he picks us up and helps us walk even taller than we did before we fell. And this is like my real life coming through right here. Like I knew when writing this, it would be so intimate to say he dapped me up with his palms, right? I want to take you through that, like that moment. Again, in basketball, we always see teammates running over to help each other up. But I wanted to take you through like the real intricate part of what that means. Jesus dap me up with his palms, right? Because as we know, when Jesus rose and eventually appeared out the tomb, he still had the holes in his hands from the crucifixion. So I say that to say, like, imagine Jesus dapping you up. Not only would that feel better than a dap from Allen Iverson, because Allen Iverson got some elite daps. But like you would get to feel the holes in his hand and say, dang, he went through that just for me. That's why Jesus wears his holes like tattoos. That's why they're not healed and stitched up. Because it's a reminder to himself, like, I fulfilled my purpose. I did what my father wanted me to do. I did what he had for me here. And more importantly, I did it for all of the generations that I'm trying to get to, right? I think, and again, please forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I believe it was Paul who says, like, you know, it is God's greatest desire for the mystery of the gospel to be known to all generations, right? So it's like when you see what Jesus went through, imagine like what that would feel like to see that in person. So yes, he dapped me up with his palms because he wanted me to feel him, but he wanted me to feel him, if that makes sense. So like I said, imagine Jesus dapping you up. Like he went through that for me, just so I could have the chance to choose him. Not that even would that would be not that that would even be guaranteed, but just to have the chance to choose him. And see, with all three scenarios I described in the previous section of bars, being on the ground, not only does he dap you up, but now I dap you and I lift you up off the ground, right? He picked me up with the Psalms, right? John 1 1, in the beginning, the word was God and the word was with God, right? Like he picked me up with his word. He used his word to encourage me, right? All of the Bible is God breathed, right? It's not to say God wrote everything, but obviously he inspired the people and created the people who wrote these books. He gave the wisdom to these people that wrote these books. And for me, you know, Psalm 77 has been the one that always gets me out of a funk because it's such an honest psalm about like giving your struggles and your gripes to God and then choosing to praise him even when it's hard. Like it's definitely a psalm I recommend, like the whole entire Psalm 77 book or chapter. Like the way it comes from like, man, like God, where are you? Like what you doing? Like, but then it's like, you know what? I'm gonna think back. I remember how you delivered us from Egypt, right? I remember, you have a place for us. You had a place for us. You created a place that you wanted us to dwell in. We just be tripping so much that we can't even get there how we supposed to get there, right? Like all of those things, it's a great psalm to get you out of a funk, you know, and see me, if I take it to another notch and reference, again, like it's both sides now, right? Like all of that was spiritual, but of course my brain is like, yeah, like instead of just straight up saying Psalm 77, like, let me shout out one of the great young talents in the NBA right now, Luka Doncic, who wears the number 77. And like I said, and my nickname for him is Luka the Don, right? Luka Doncic, Luka the Don. I don't know why more people don't call him that, but I'm gonna claim that. Uh, so because God lifted me up in my time of need, whether that was on the court, spiritually, individually, I'm ready to bounce back. Now my switch is turned on, right? Again, like basketball, you always see the some of the dopest scorers. They get that look on their face, like, oh, it's over for y'all. It's over for the defense. Like, I got y'all figured out, But again, now my switch is turned on. Like DMX with the songs, got that dog in them, but the outside keeping it calm. Even that little DMX part is like a kind of double entendre because it's like now my switch is turned on, like DMX with the songs. I got that dog in him. Like, yes, DMX literally barked in his songs, right? And even had his dog ad lib in some of his songs. But it's also like, you know, like DMX with the songs, I'm bringing that intensity. I'm bringing that honesty, Um, Yeah, yeah. That's like, man, when I tell you this part always gets me hype, because I think it just describes the kind of hooper I was slash am, like if I'm in that mode, I get quiet, but on the inside, like I'm scared for my matchup. You know what I'm saying? I'm comfortable now. And we see how that applies in this story, right? Like, but again, even with the other opponents, it applies because now you can't be shaken, And like I said, when I was writing that part, like I literally was writing like DMX with the songs, got that dog in him, right? Because that's the new one of the new sayings now. Everybody says, "Oh, he got that dog in him. She got that dog in her." Like, but then I was like, very quickly, I was like, "Nah, do the DMX growl." Like, I'm gonna replace dog with the DMX growl. So, fun fact: if you remember my "It's Dark and Hell Is Hot" album review, I did the DMX growl in my intro. So for one on one, when you hear that growl, I took the growl that I did in that episode, and then I took the growl, like the acapella growl from X Gonna Give It To You. I merged them together as a way to pay homage to DMX, but also still be kind of original, right? So, fun fact, when you hear that growl in one on one, that's me and DMX. You may not be able to tell, but I feel like it is kind of like different than the ones you hear a little bit like in DMX's songs, obviously. So like, yeah, very like Easter egg, there. I wonder if like anybody, you got to let me know if you caught that at all because yeah, that's a little Easter egg in there. That's me and DMX growling there, but yeah, definitely my favorite part of the song, but I think you can see, just how much it fits with what I was trying to convey in this song. So, at this point in the song, I start to ride this momentum for the rest of the song and, this proverbial one on one match. But before we continue, if you do like what you're hearing so far, I want to encourage you and let you be reminded of how you can go above and beyond your support for Hip to the Games and show some love to the podcast in the expression of fashion. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. All right, then continuing with the newfound momentum after the love of Jesus, this one-on-one match starts to turn around in my favor. On some Kobe 81, not homie hearing the hisses, getting buckets like a pothead. It ain't nothing but swishes, right? And I just wanted to stop here to say, I can always find a way to give a shout out to Kobe. This time referencing his iconic 81 point game, while also nodding to his nickname, the Black Mamba, right? As I describe how at this point I'm so in the zone like that my opponent is starting to hear hisses from the Mamba, right? I'm in that mode. And I mentioned that the buckets that I'm getting are specifically swishes, right? Keyword, a thing about what I always talk about on here, enunciation, pronunciation is very important in hip hop storytelling, and in the sense of like you can bend that creativity however you like, because I say getting buckets like a pothead it ain't nothing but swishers. Swishers, right? Like, obviously, if you into that, that's what happens. I'm not into that, but obviously, I'm tapped in enough to know, like, like that would be a clever line. But obviously, on the surface, getting buckets, it ain't nothing but swishes, right? So the way I say it, it kind of it helps me get both of those points across. So again, kind of like a double entendre there. Um, I can't really describe how it's hard for me to like put into words how I did that, but like you'll just notice that I wanted it to be swishes to fit the basketball aspect, but obviously the punchline was like getting buckets like a pothead, so I had to try to say swishers at the same time I'm trying to say swishes, if that makes any kind of sense. But again, a little humor in there from me. But again, all of that is just so much depth in this song. I just want to continue to reiterate that while all of this sounds very basketball, right? The other opponents aren't out the picture. The feeling you get when finally scoring on your matchup is the same feeling you can have versus the enemy or when you win a battle with yourself, right? Again, just because you might hear more surface level basketball bars does not mean that those other two opponents aren't in play. Please remember this as I continue. Leaps of faith got me 5'8", touching the rim. I hear cheers even in this empty gym. Must be them angels from the outfield. Step into the hardwood. like the name Shuttlesworth, shooting like a star would. All right, so here I pulled an idea I used in another Instagram freestyle once. As I say, leaps of faith got me 5'8" touching the rim to illustrate just how much faith can help me reach my goals. At 5'8", I obviously can't touch the rim. I used to. I used to. Don't get it twisted. In high school, I could nick the rim just a little bit. um, but I'm not quite there yet. But I was in high school once upon a time. But more importantly, this newfound rush of faith, makes me feel like I can, even though I can't actually dunk. This newfound faith makes me feel like I can. And, even in a one-on-one battle, I'm getting motivation from somewhere. Almost like there are fans in the gym, right? And so essentially I'm saying, it's angels from heaven on my side, right? Those are the cheers that I'm hearing. I'm physically by myself, but I'm far from spiritually by myself, right? And so, of course, I referenced the classic 1994 baseball film, Angels in the Outfield, mentioning that they have now stepped to the hardwood to help me out with basketball as opposed to baseball, right? And then again, those movie references keep going as I compare my shooting in this one-on-one battle to Ray Allen's character in He Got Game, as he played a high school standout while being one of the best young talents in the NBA at the time, before going on to becoming, one of the greatest shooters ever. But of course, that in itself was, shall I admit, a unintentional double entendre. Um, because what was the first name of the character in He Got Game? Jesus. Jesus Shuttlesworth. So again, a lot of layers there. A lot of layers there. So while there were plenty of hoop references on the surface, I take a quick break to essentially reveal the main message of one on one after those bars. The beauty behind the game is often classes in session, and through the ups and downs, we learn invaluable lessons. Got a very real threat to our spiritual health, but the matchup we gotta watch is the one with ourselves. All right, so it's really what I've been saying all episode now. Whether the game of basketball, the game of life, or the battle versus the spiritual enemy, the beauty of it all is the lessons we learn along the way. And even though we do have external opponents sometimes, a lot of the things we face are internal too, so that's why I stress here, like, we might have all these battles, but make sure we take heed to the ones that are against ourselves, which is also an idea that continues in the next set of rhymes. I thought I could fight alone till I picked up his call. Your boy answered. Now I make the defense fall. Steady, ready to eat is daily bread that I gnaw. I entered the fire weak, and now I'm leaving it strong. So I'm essentially saying, like, I truly tried to fight the battle by myself, right? Whether that was my battle versus the enemy or the battles with myself, negativity, overthinking, things like that. It wasn't until I sought the Lord's help that I was able to win. And I even acknowledge that by comparing his help to a phone call, right? But when I say I answered it, it's a reference to Allen Iverson, right? AKA the answer, which is why I then say, your boy answered. Now I make the defense fall, right? Because I answered God's call, I can make the enemy fall. Like, no longer are the enemy's traps getting to me because I got the help of my heavenly father. But again, in basketball, your boy answered. Now I make the defense fall with the handle like AI, right? Double entendre. So, you know, and to put that cherry on top, I credit my success to my nutrition, right? Or daily bread, right? Not just as in wheat, but more so the word of God, right? As I consume his wisdom and teachings consistently, it strengthens me. It strengthens my spirit. It in the wisdom that is in the books of the Bible is embedded in my spirit, so I can evolve from my weaknesses and I can apply them to my life. And lastly, I finished this track. And I'm sorry. And that last line too, right? I entered the fire weak and now I'm leaving it strong. What does that sound like, right? Way back on my crossover episode where we went into Hunger on Hillside by J. Cole, right? We talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Like, they was in the fire and they weren't even burned. In fact, Jesus joined them in that fire, and that's why they weren't burned, right? So I entered the fire weak, and now I'm leaving it strong. That kind of idea is there too. But lastly, I finished the track, kind of like a fast forward to what you could presume is a rematch requested by my opponent or myself, right? I kind of left that up to a listener's imagination. But where I enter the situation learning from the past experiences I've rapped about up to this point. After polishing my skills and minimizing the flaws, I take a gaze at the ceiling. A smile is what I saw. I take my spot on the court, peep homie clenching his jaw. He looking like he got beef, because now he know that my game is raw, right? So at the end there, you hear me play on the title of the original song from Rapsody, right? Raw. After revealing how I put in the work, I learned from my past. I imagined that the Lord was proud of me, that he's smiling at me, proud of how I overcame my past flaws and mistakes. And before looking at that same opponent I've been facing, this time, both of us ready for what could be, what should be an entirely different battle, which leads perfectly into the Kobe outro at the end, right? Like where he says, like, he never lost a one-on-one because that's what I do, you know? And I use that to say, like, sure, I can't say I'm undefeated like Kobe, and I gotta shout out my one of my close friends, Nashawn, man. I know he's probably listening to that, like, man, you lying, like you capping, because he just beat me the other weekend at the time of this recording, so I'm not saying like I'm this undefeated Kobe-like figure playing basketball, right? Like I'm not saying that, but I use that outro to just say like, you know, I'm that confident in my one-on-one abilities because, I put in the work, I took my L's, and, you know, like the opponent doesn't have home court advantage in my mind no more. And again, right, spiritually, the devil, he ain't living rent free in my head. I'm not just gonna let you live rent free, you know. Myself, right? I've been through this countless times, right? Where I gotta remind myself, like, yo, Des, like, it's time to strap up. Like you know what I'm saying? Like you got to put the clamps on yourself sometimes, you know? So again, like I said, it fits all of those scenarios. So whether you're a basketball player, you can take that approach. If it's spiritual, the enemy ain't got nothing on you, right? He's under your feet for a reason, right? And if it's individual, I'm gonna be ready for the next time I'm feeling negative or the next time I feel like choosing the easy wrong over the hard right. I don't lose. I'm not going to lose. And if I do, it's just going to set me up for my next win. So is it even really a loss at that point? Right? So either way, it's over for my opponent. Check ball. And with that, that already brings us to the end of the breakdown. Man, I won't lie, trying to explain the depth of this song, I felt like was going to be a little hard. And even now, like, I still hope it all made sense and it truly resonated with you. No matter who your opponent might be at this moment in time, it's really dope to be able to say I did something like this. Obviously, not by my own strength, of course. I'll be the first to say that. But, if I'm honest, I never really thought I had it in me. Not like this, at least, but it's all God, man. It's all God. And like, I gotta shout out my support system too. Like people who just, whether it's family, friends, like my rapper friends, you know what I'm saying? People who just be like, oh, Des, you need to make music, or hey man, I got beats. I got beats. It just giving me that nudge. And, you know, my brother and my sister and my mom, like everybody just always like for a lifespan, you know what I'm saying? Like pouring into me and giving me encouraging words. Like that's the only reason stuff like this can happen. And obviously God himself. Like I always joked, right? Like to those who really know me, I always joked. And I said, Jesus himself would have to tell me, like, my son, I need you to rap. Like that was my only way I was gonna do it. And, stubborn old me strikes again, I gotta learn the hard way to never say never, right? But yeah, it's all God, man. And somehow he picked me to do something like this, and I'm happy and thankful that he did. This was definitely fun to create and allowed me to get more in my like aggressive motivational bag. I like that. So I love that, and I look forward. I'm already feeling so blessed and like humbled by the love that I've received. Whether you text me or you hit me up on the socials, whatever it was, like I really am touched by that, and it's humbling, reading thoughts on this. And of course, I gotta shout out my guy. L Summers again for mixing this for me. He did the mixing and the mastering. So, if you're a production nerd and you like how it sounds, like that's my guy, man. That's my guy. He did the extra work helping me out. He was the only one that reached out when I kind of offered it up on my story that I needed a little help with this. Uh, and obviously I worked with him. Not necessarily directly, but he mixed the Days track that I did with Jay Powell. And so when he reached out with this, like, he was patient with me. And we got it going, and I love how they turned out. So I gotta give a shout out to my guy L Summers. Definitely L Summers for president. You know what I'm saying? Um of course I gotta shout out Rapsody, for absolutely doing the original track justice on her album, and as a result inspiring me to get in my bag and get these bars off. And I definitely got to shout you out for a little extra, for listening and in the first place. As always, I genuinely hope you give this song a listen, and I hope and pray it inspires you to win your own one-on-one battles, however those look for you, and that it encourages you to put your trust in the one who empowers you to fight those battles in the first place and wants to help you get the victory while he gets the glory. Amen. Right? Like I said, I know for myself, like, again, writing this song and Kemba Walker was like really at a time where I was kind of like, kind of rough mentally in terms of like, yo, like, I'm in my mid 20s, like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I should be here and I'm not here. I feel like I should be there and I'm not there. Kind of feel like life is going to be like this literally forever. So, like, what do I do? A lot of moments like that. So like I said, this song is speaking to me as much as it is to anybody else, to my hoopers, right? Keep working. If you're struggling spiritually, don't throw in the towel, um, continue to choose Jesus even when it's hard, and as a teammate of Team God, like, there are so many of us rooting for your success, um, because the kingdom needs it, right? The kingdom needs our persistence, and again, like the Bible says, right? Like, um, you know, long suffering, right? Patience worketh itself in you when you go through these times. So, it builds you up. It seriously builds you up, for greater reasons than we can even imagine. And then if your opponent is yourself, please reach out to God. Like I said, I'm always going to encourage that. I don't care. I'm sure obviously not everybody I come across is going to be a believer, but that's something I'm always going to throw out there. Um, you know, and if you even don't want to do that, reach out to family, reach out to friends, reach out to somebody. Um, you know, those people that will listen to you vent and help you manage whatever it is that you're in your feelings about. Like, if you get anything from this song, know that victory is possible, right? In this game of one-on-one, victory is possible. So, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hear my thoughts on some of my own contributions to this beautiful thing we call hip hop. Still sounds crazy to even say that. Um, like I said, man, I could say so much. I just did a whole episode and I still feel like I haven't nailed everything. I'm sure I'm gonna play this back and I'm gonna be like, dang, I could have said this. But I'm happy with this, man. I'm excited. Please share any thoughts with your boy, as I'm always around for further discussion and thoughts and things of that nature on the Twitter or IG at Desmond Powell _. Of course, you can hit up the podcast directly at Hip to the Games. If you want to talk some more, I always leave that door open. Here's to this milestone reflection of the God-gifted brilliance of hip hop's present, if I do say so myself. And of course, here's a huge shout out to you again for being hip to the games. And I thank you so much for sticking around for another episode, all for the love of the best combo there is. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.